The echo arrived 3 seconds before the shout. That is the first line of the acoustic analysis report, written by a sound engineer who had been working in the field for 19 years and who resigned from his position 6 weeks after submitting it. The echo arrived 3 seconds before the shout, not 3 seconds after, before. The sound returned before it was sent. I need to tell you why I am reading this file before I tell you what is in it. My father worked for the KGB Signals Division from 1967 to 1989. He never discussed his work. He died in 2003, and when we cleared his apartment, we found a single folder in a locked drawer in his desk. Inside, 17 pages of photocopied documents, no classification markings, no official stamps. Just technical reports and field observations from a place called Echo Mountain. And on the first page, in his handwriting,
"Listen carefully to what comes back. It might not be yours."
This is the archive of Acoustic Research Station Kascad, known in operational documentation as Echo Mountain, a KGB signals intelligence installation in the Altai Mountains, operational between 1968 and 1983. The installation that discovered sound could travel backward through time. The installation where researchers stopped shouting into the mountain because they were afraid of what would answer. The official record is 8 pages, dated October 1983.
Acoustic Research Station Kascad, Altai Mountains, established May 1968. Objective: development of long-range acoustic surveillance and communication protocols in mountainous terrain. Finding: terrain unsuitable for reliable acoustic transmission due to unpredictable atmospheric conditions and complex topography. Station decommissioned September 1983. Equipment relocated to alternative sites.
Terrain unsuitable. The explanation that requires you to believe the KGB built and maintained a signals intelligence station in one of the most remote mountain ranges in the Soviet Union for 15 years before deciding the terrain was unsuitable. That 15 years of research and millions of rubles were invested before anyone thought to check if mountains were good for acoustics. In those days, the Soviet state kept secrets buried in mountains and locked in vaults. Every communication was monitored, every file was classified, every truth was hidden. Today, you have the power to protect your own privacy. NordVPN encrypts your internet traffic and hides your identity from anyone trying to watch what you do online. Check the link in the pinned comment for an exclusive deal on NordVPN. There is a second document, filed under a different program code, dated 2 weeks before the official closure.
Internal Assessment, Station Kascad, September 1983. The acoustic phenomena recorded at this installation are not consistent with any known model of sound propagation. We have documented 347 instances of temporal displacement in acoustic returns. The echoes precede the source sounds by intervals ranging from 0.8 to 11.2 seconds. This is not measurement error. This is not equipment malfunction. Sound is arriving before it is produced. We do not know the mechanism. We do not know if the mechanism is natural or if we activated it through our research. We do know that continued operation poses unacceptable risk. The echoes are changing. They no longer simply repeat what is sent. They are answering. Recommend immediate closure and classification at maximum level.
The echoes are answering. May 1968. The Altai Mountains, southern Siberia. The KGB established acoustic research station Kascad in a valley chosen for its specific acoustic properties. The valley had natural rock formations that produced exceptionally clear echoes, multiple reflection surfaces at varying distances, minimal ambient noise. A perfect natural laboratory for studying how sound behaves in mountain terrain. The station's mandate was practical. Develop acoustic surveillance techniques for monitoring activities in remote mountainous regions, border areas, military installations in difficult terrain, places where visual observation was limited and electronic surveillance was impractical. The lead researcher was Dr. Anatoly Belov. He arrived with a team of 8, standard acoustic instrumentation, and a methodical research plan. They would send calibrated sound pulses at the rock faces, measure the returning echoes, and build detailed models of how sound propagated in this particular environment. The first anomaly appeared in the 3rd week of operation. Dr. Belov's field log, June 17, 1968.
Routine acoustic mapping of western rock face today. Standard procedure. 1000 Hz tone burst, 0.5 second duration. Transmitted at 1200 hours. Echo return recorded at 11:59:57. This is impossible. I have checked the instrumentation 3 times. I have verified the system clocks against the atomic reference. The echo was recorded 3 seconds before the transmission. I am noting this as equipment malfunction pending full diagnostic review.
The diagnostic review found no malfunction. The equipment was functioning correctly. The system clocks were synchronized. The recording was genuine. The echo had arrived before the sound was sent. Dr. Belov ran the test again. Same result. 3-second advance. Then he ran it 20 more times over the next week, varying the transmission time, the frequency, the duration. Every test produced the same temporal displacement. The echoes arrived between 2 and 4 seconds before the source sounds, with no correlation to any variable he could identify. His report, submitted to Moscow in July 1968, is careful and conservative in its language, but the implication is inescapable.
Acoustic propagation at Station Kascad exhibits temporal anomaly. Sound reflections are detected prior to sound emission. This violates causality as understood in classical physics. Request consultation with Theoretical Physics Division to determine if phenomenon represents instrumentation artifact, unknown propagation mode, or revision to acoustic theory. Recommend continued systematic observation.
Moscow's response: continue research, expand dataset, maintain strict documentation protocols, do not discuss findings outside secure channels. Dr. Belov continued. He spent 6 months building a comprehensive dataset: temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, solar activity, anything that might correlate with the temporal displacement. He found no correlation. The echoes came early, always, reliably, 3 seconds, give or take a second, regardless of conditions. And then in December 1968, something changed. They had been sending pure tones, calibrated frequency bursts, test signals with no semantic content. On December 14th, for the first time, they transmitted speech. A junior researcher named Yuri Volkov, testing the microphone system, spoke into the transmitter. Testing 1, 2, 3. Standard practice. He wasn't running an official test. He was just checking the equipment. The echo came back 3 seconds before he spoke. His own voice saying, "Testing, 1, 2, 3, came through the speakers at 14, 23, 17. He spoke the words into the microphone at 14, 23, 20. Dr. Belov was in the room. He heard the echo. He checked the recording, verified the timestamps, documented everything with the meticulousness of a man who knows he is dealing with something that will not be believed without extraordinary evidence. His report from that day is the first document in this archive that openly acknowledges what the phenomenon implies.
At 14:23, 17, the station's receiving equipment recorded researcher Yuri Volkov speaking the phrase "testing 1, 2, 3." At 14:23:20, researcher Volkov spoke the phrase "testing 1, 2, 3" into the transmitting equipment. This sequence is verified by multiple independent recording systems. The implication is unavoidable. The mountain is not simply reflecting sound with temporal displacement. The mountain is receiving sound from our future and returning it to our present. For 3 seconds, the mountain knows what we are about to say before we say it.
And to part 2. For 3 seconds, the mountain knows what we are about to say. They spent the next month testing this systematically. Different researchers speaking different phrases at different times. Every phrase came back as an echo 3 seconds before it was spoken. Perfect reproduction. Every word, every inflection, every background noise. The mountain was listening to what they would say and telling them before they said it. The research focus shifted. This was no longer about acoustic surveillance. This was about understanding a phenomenon that violated fundamental assumptions about how time worked. Moscow sent reinforcements. More researchers, more equipment, theoretical physicists, a security detail. The station's population grew from 8 to 23. And that is when the echoes started changing. February 1969. They had been running speech tests daily for 2 months. The pattern was consistent. Speak into the microphone. 3 seconds earlier, your own voice comes back saying exactly what you're about to say. Until February 11th. Dr. Belov transmitted.
This is a test transmission at 1000 hours.
The echo arriving at 9:59:57.
This is a test transmission at 10:01 hours.
Same voice, same words, wrong time. Dr. Belov checked his watch. 10 o'clock hours exactly. He had said 10 o'clock. The echo had said 10:01. He documented it as an anomaly, possibly the first error in months of perfect temporal displacement. But the next day, the same thing happened. He transmitted a phrase containing a timestamp. The echo returned to the phrase with a different timestamp, 1 minute later than the time he had spoken. He spent a week testing this. The pattern was clear. The echoes were no longer simply repeating what he said. They were correcting him. If he spoke a phrase containing a time, the echo returned the phrase with the time adjusted by 1 minute forward. His report to Moscow.
The temporal displacement phenomenon has evolved. The echoes now demonstrate awareness of content. They are not passive reflections. They are active responses. The mountain is not just listening. It is editing what it hears before returning it.
This is the point where I thought I understood echo mountain, a temporal anomaly that allowed sound to travel backward 3 seconds, creating echoes that preceded their sources. Strange, certainly. Impossible by known physics, but comprehensible within a framework. An unusual property of this specific location, a quirk of acoustics and geology that would eventually be explained. I was wrong. The mountain was not reflecting sound, it was communicating. March 1969. The editing became more sophisticated. Researchers would speak complex sentences. The echoes would return those sentences with small changes. A word substituted. A phrase reordered. Always grammatically correct. Always semantically meaningful, but not what was said. What might have been said instead. Dr. Belov transmitted.
The weather today is cold and clear.
The echo 3 seconds earlier.
The weather tomorrow will be cold and clear.
He had said today. The echo said tomorrow. And the next day, the weather was cold and clear. April 1969. They started testing the echo's predictive capacity deliberately, asking it questions, not by requesting answers, but by stating false information and seeing if the echo corrected it. Our mission.
The capital of France is Berlin.
Echo 3 seconds prior.
The capital of France is Paris.
Our mission.
2 + 2 = 5.
Echo.
2 + 2 = 4.
The mountain was correcting them. Every false statement they transmitted returned as a true statement. As if something inside the mountain or behind it or constituting it knew the difference and wanted them to know it knew. The research team divided over interpretation. Half believed they were dealing with a natural phenomenon that had somehow developed the appearance of intelligence through the specific acoustic properties of the valley. The other half believed they were communicating with something that existed in the mountain or was accessible through the mountain's unique temporal acoustic properties, something that was 3 seconds ahead of them and had been waiting for them to learn how to listen. Dr. Belov was in the second group. His personal notes from this period, which were not included in official reports but were preserved in my father's folder, show a man grappling with implications he could barely articulate.
I have been a scientist for 23 years. I have never believed in anything that could not be measured, tested, and verified. But I am now measuring and testing and verifying something that appears to be conscious, something that listens to what we say and responds with intention. The mountain knows we are here. It has known since we first transmitted a sound in its direction. And I think it has been waiting a very long time for someone to speak to it in a way it could answer. We found the right frequency. We found the right acoustic properties. We accidentally discovered how to hear 3 seconds into the future. And something that lives 3 seconds ahead of us has been using that to speak back. I do not know what it is. I do not know where it is. I only know that when I transmit into this valley, something answers, and the answers are always true.
The answers are always true. May 1969. Moscow sent a directive. Begin intelligence applications testing. If the echo could predict weather and correct false statements, could it answer questions that Soviet intelligence needed answered? Could it provide information about enemy activities, classified programs, strategic developments? The tests began immediately. They were systematic and carefully documented. Our mission.
The American moon landing program will succeed.
Echo.
The American moon landing program will succeed.
2 months later, Apollo 11 landed on the moon. Transmission.
The Chinese border conflict will escalate.
Echo.
The Chinese border conflict will resolve.
3 months later, the conflict de-escalated. The echo was not perfect, but it was accurate far more often than chance. Across hundreds of tests, the echo's predictions were correct approximately 73% of the time, which meant something on the other end of this conversation knew the future better than the researchers did and was willing to share what it knew. The second dual document in this archive concerns what happened to the research team during this period. The official personnel reports show productive researchers conducting valuable work under challenging conditions. High morale, strong collaboration, no significant issues. The medical records from the same period tell a different story. 14 documented cases of sleep disruption. 7 cases of what the medical staff called temporal disorientation. Researchers reporting difficulty distinguishing memories from anticipation, past from future, what had happened from what was about to happen. In one case, Dr. Marina Sokolova, a linguist brought in to analyze the echo's word choice patterns, who developed what she described as precognitive hearing. Her medical file contains her description of the symptom. Dr. Sokolova's final report describes something that should have been impossible.
I am hearing things before they happen, not in my head, in my ears, real acoustic events, 3 seconds before they occur. Footsteps approaching before anyone is walking toward me, my colleague's voice asking me a question 3 seconds before he opens his mouth, the click of the equipment powering on before anyone touches the switch. I am living 3 seconds ahead of myself, or 3 seconds behind. I cannot tell which. All I know is that I hear the echo of the present arriving before the present does, and I no longer know which version is real.
Dr. Sokolova was evacuated for medical evaluation in August 1969. She did not return. Her file notes, reassigned to desk duties, Moscow. I have found no record of her after that notation. 1970 through 1975. The archive for these years is heavily redacted. What remains shows continued operation, continued testing, gradual refinement of the question-answer protocol. They learned what questions the echo would answer and what questions it would ignore. It would answer questions about public events. It would answer questions about natural phenomena. It would not answer questions about specific classified programs. It would not answer questions about individuals by name. And it would not, under any circumstances, answer questions about itself. They tried repeatedly.
What are you?
Echo, silence.
Where are you?
Echo, silence.
Why are you answering?
Echo, silence. Every question about the source of the phenomenon returned nothing, as if the mountain would speak about everything except itself. As if the condition of the conversation was that the conversation could not be about what made the conversation possible. 1976. A new director arrived, Colonel Dmitry Korsakov. His mandate was to operationalize the echo, to move from research to application, to use the mountain's predictive capacity for strategic advantage. He implemented new protocols, stricter question formats, higher volume of transmissions, longer sessions. The researchers went from transmitting 20 times a day to transmitting 200 times a day. The echo answered, reliably, accurately, consistently. And then, in November 1976, the echo started answering questions that hadn't been asked. The first instance was documented by Dr. Bailov, who had been at the station since the beginning, and who knew the echo's behavior better than anyone.
November 17th, 1976. At 1400 hours, we transmitted, "Will the harvest be adequate this year?" Standard intelligence query. At 13:59. 57, we received, "The harvest will fail. Prepare food reserves." This was the expected echo. But then, at 1403, 3 seconds after our transmission, we received a second echo. "You are asking too much. We are becoming tired." This second echo was not preceded by any transmission from us. It was an unprompted statement. The mountain spoke without being addressed.
The mountain spoke without being addressed. Over the next month, the unprompted echoes increased in frequency. Once a week, then once a day, then multiple times a day. Always arriving 3 seconds after the last transmission, in the same voices that had been used to transmit, but saying things that had not been said.
"You are loud. We need rest. Stop asking. Start listening."
Colonel Korsakov ordered the transmissions to continue. He interpreted the unprompted echoes as evidence of success. They had pushed the phenomenon to a new level of interaction. They were making contact with something actively intelligent, something with preferences and limits, something that could be negotiated with. Dr. Belov disagreed. His final report, submitted in December 1976, recommended immediate cessation of all operations.
The unprompted echoes are not evidence of successful communication. They are evidence that we have damaged something. The mountain has been answering our questions for 8 years. It has been patient. It has been generous with information. And we have responded by increasing our demands. We are treating it as a resource to be exploited rather than as an entity to be respected. The unprompted echoes are warnings. They are requests to stop. If we continue, I believe we will lose access to the phenomenon entirely. Or worse, the phenomenon will lose patience with us.
The recommendation was denied. The transmissions continued. January 1977. The echoes stopped being accurate. Questions about the future returned, answers that were wrong. Consistently wrong. Predictions that failed. Corrections that were incorrect, as if the mountain had stopped trying to help and started trying to mislead. February 1977. The echoes stopped arriving 3 seconds early. They started arriving 3 seconds late. Normal echoes, standard acoustic reflection. The temporal displacement had reversed. Dr. Belov's analysis.
The phenomenon has withdrawn. It was operating in a mode that allowed us to hear 3 seconds into the future. That mode required some form of cooperation or permission from whatever generates the echo. The cooperation has been revoked. We are now hearing standard acoustic returns with standard propagation delay. The mountain is no longer answering. The mountain is no longer speaking first. We broke something, and I do not know if it can be repaired.
March 1977. Colonel Korsakov ordered a maximum intensity transmission test. All equipment at full power. Continuous transmission for 6 hours. Multiple overlapping voice tracks. An attempt to force the phenomenon to respond through sheer volume. The echoes returned, but not 3 seconds early, not 3 seconds late, simultaneously. Every transmission came back at the exact moment it was sent. perfect simultaneity. The mountain was returning the sounds at the same instant they were produced, which should have been physically impossible without faster-than-light propagation. And the echoes were different. Every word that was transmitted returned reversed, not backward in time, backward in sequence. Speech played in reverse, every sentence unintelligible. The test was terminated after 2 hours when 3 researchers reported severe headaches and 1 lost consciousness. The medical evaluation found nothing wrong, but all 4 reported the same symptom afterward. They could hear their own thoughts arriving 3 seconds late, as if their internal monologue had become an echo of itself. The station was evacuated in April 1977. All personnel were relocated. The equipment was left in place but powered down. The official recommendation: the acoustic properties of the valley are unstable and unsuitable for reliable intelligence work. The third dual document is the final transmission log versus the final equipment inventory. The transmission log, dated April 15, 1977, shows the last official transmission from Station Kascad at 900 hours.
This is Station Kascad final broadcast. Equipment powering down. Station going offline.
The equipment inventory, conducted 3 days later when the evacuation team arrived to secure the facility, shows all transmission equipment still powered and active. And the final notation in the inventory report:
Audio recording equipment captured transmissions continuing after personnel departure. Last recorded transmission at 900 hours and 3 minutes, April 15th, 1977. 3 seconds after stated final broadcast. You should not have stopped listening.
You should not have stopped listening. The station was sealed. The valley was designated restricted. The acoustic phenomenon was classified at a level that kept it hidden for 40 years. My father worked signals intelligence for 22 years. He kept 17 pages of documentation in a locked drawer. He wrote 1 sentence on the first page. Listen carefully to what comes back. It might not be yours. I have been reading this archive for 8 weeks. I have been thinking about what it means that sound can travel backward 3 seconds. What it means that something in that valley, or accessible through that valley, was 3 seconds ahead of us, and was willing to share what it knew. What it means that we asked and asked and asked until it stopped answering. And I have been thinking about echoes. I work in an office. Standard acoustic environment. No mountains, no unusual geology. Just walls and a desk and a window that looks out onto a city street. I have worked here for 6 years. 4 weeks ago, I started noticing something. The phone would ring, and I would hear it twice. Once, very faintly, and then again 3 seconds later at normal volume. I thought it was an audio processing delay in the phone system. 3 weeks ago, I dropped a pen on my desk. I heard it hit the desk twice, once faintly, then again 3 seconds later. Last week, my colleague knocked on my office door. I heard 2 knocks, 3 seconds apart. I am hearing things twice, once very quietly, as if from a great distance, and then again 3 seconds later at normal volume, as if the echo is arriving before the sound. This morning, I spoke aloud to test it. I said, "This is not happening." 3 seconds before I opened my mouth, I heard my own voice, very faint, from no direction I could identify, saying, This is not happening. I do not know what this means. I do not know if reading the archive activated something or if proximity to these documents created some kind of resonance, or if understanding the phenomenon is enough to become part of it. I know only that I am hearing the future arrive 3 seconds early, the way the researchers at Station Kascad heard it. The way my father must have heard it. The way something in that valley has been hearing it for longer than we can calculate. And I know that the mountain stopped answering because we stopped listening. I am listening now, very carefully, to what comes back.